Hello, beautiful people. Day 7 of 7. How exciting. How are we feeling? Happy Easter. I hope we've had some chocolate and enjoyed ourselves today and dropped the guilt. I was speaking to my ladies in the group today about that. It can take some time if we've had a battle with food, especially our whole life. Yes, day 7, emotional eating. So we've gone through so much content already: sleep, self-love, hunger and portions, cleaning out your home. We've covered a lot in 7 days, so there is a lot of information there. Like I've said, if you want to keep that content, then you share it on your page and it stays on your page. Yeah, so you get to just watch it at your own leisure, at your own pace, and share it with anyone else who you think is going to get some value from it. I feel like I was going to say something else then, I can't remember what it was. So we're going to go into emotional eating, habits and belief, that type of thing today. But what I wanted to start with, there we go, just remember, it came back to me, is that all of this knowledge that I have got myself, I have learned, just like you guys are going to learn, yeah, and like my women learn. And particularly the stuff that I've got today, I've done a lot of personal development and read a lot of what you call personal development, personal growth books over my time. And I'm going to speak about some of the authors that we'll be giving some points from today, because their content is so phenomenal, and it's really trying to understand the full human mind and why we do the things that we do, pretty much. So human potential, human growth, all that type of thing. So that's why I read as much as I can, do all the courses I can, so it helps me understand people that I work with, and it changes the way we think about people. Yeah, so that's just what I want to touch on there, and I'll give you some names of some people that I love to follow, and let's jump in today. And thanks everyone for joining us today, and hey babe. So I wanted to start with a quote. The last few times I've been loving starting and ending with a quote. So today's quote to start with is: happiness cannot be traveled to, earned, worn, or consumed. Happiness is a spiritual experience of living every minute with love, grace, and gratitude. Take a deep breath in and let that one land. Because if we are always looking externally for happiness, we're never going to be fulfilled. Because if we're always, when I lose weight, when I look like that person, when I insert whatever in your life circumstances you want in there, you're always striving outside of you. So that happiness is always unattainable. Happiness always comes from within. I'm happy, so therefore I will feel happiness before receiving all those things, and they will come to me because I'm already happy. Yeah, it's just starts from within. Love that little phrase. Now, the first person I wanted to talk about, who I have been like a little bit obsessed with, I've just read her book twice actually, in the last, making it wobbly, in the last couple of months, and that's Brene Brown and The Power of Vulnerability. And I've got one of her books up there, Braving the Wilderness, which I read quite some time ago. I've forgotten a lot of that one now, but this is fresh in my mind from The Power of Vulnerability. And she's actually got some content on Netflix, I've heard, or coming on Netflix. I haven't turned my Netflix on for ages, so I've got to get on there and save that one to watch. But she talks about the suppression of our emotions. This is just going to get into emotional eating here. We suppress them. Let me rephrase that. Suppressions of emotions is really us being scared of being vulnerable. And it's actually really scary to be vulnerable, and that can be vulnerable to feel the emotions. That's where I'm going with that. So to feel the emotions that are coming up for us can be really scary. And when we do that, we are being vulnerable to whatever's going to happen because it's unknown to us. So I just wanted to point that out. And we would rather live, I love her little saying here, that we'd rather live perpetually disappointed than actually feel disappointed. So again, it's not wanting to actually feel the feelings that come up for us. So we're going to go through all these little things here, and then we're going to get onto some tips later. And it's really interesting how we actually see vulnerability in others as courage, but in ourselves, we see it as weakness. And I'm no expert or not perfect at this either. In many situations, I find it hard to be vulnerable in many situations. So it's really us stepping into that fear of that and coming out the other side. She really touches on shame, and shame, I think, is a really big trigger for those, and we're going to really talk about here is the emotional side of eating, you see. That shame feeds in silence, secrecy, and judgment. Let's just go over that one again. So shame feeds in silence, secrecy, and judgment. And it dissolves when we share our story. It dissolves when we talk about it. It can't sit there, right? So that can really go into that emotional eating side of things. So when an emotion comes up for us, and it probably, like, judgment would be a big one. Like I think I said on a live, it was a week ago or something, in the media recently, they came out saying that shaming obese people is not working anymore. Like that was ever a good tactic to do. Because all it does is they feel judgment, which is shameful, and then they go and eat again and not train and whatever else and keep eating. And then we're doing that. So the people are doing it in silence and secrecy. So it's really, I think once you become aware of this, and this is like an awareness around your emotions that you're feeling. So notice when something comes up, do you suppress it? And for some people, it won't always be food. It can be social media. It can be gambling. It can be alcohol, drugs, porn on internet, scrolling, TV. Just that mindless numbing, so we don't actually feel, and some of it can be all done together. The food with the TV and the alcohol can all be done together. We're really suppressing it then. So we're avoiding actually feeling the emotions that come up. What we actually, like the research behind it is, and humans are realizing in this research, is that if we actually feel the emotion, it's like the circle of emotion. If we actually feel it, it moves through us quickly. Instead of using that suppression with food, we feel the emotion, maybe cry, scream, yell, whatever it is, but it goes through us. And it's kind of like we shake it off like the animals do in the wild. A lot of people talk about that one all the time, where they shake off after they've been in a fight and they're all like, the cortisol's up or whatever that emotion is. And then we move through that. Or kids, they'll have a cry, they'll have a scream, and then they'll move on from that. And then they're like best mates again. Like nothing happened. But for us, we suppress it, and then that anger and resentment and whatever it is, disappointment and all of it just builds and builds and builds, and then we keep suppressing and suppressing layers and layers and layers, and it can come out in all sorts of different ways, from disease into our body to explosions. And the difference between, like, when we're actually numbing, so you will know when you're using food to suppress your emotions, because when we actually get pleasure from something, so if we're having some chocolate and we do it from an intentional point of view, oh, I really want to have that chocolate, and you sit down and you have like, say Easter, you have your egg. This is a great topic for tonight, actually, with Easter, intentionally eating your chocolate. Sit down with it and you enjoy it, and you feel really good after you've had it, and you don't feel guilty. With a suppression of emotion, the other side is you're hiding in your cupboard because you don't want anyone else to see you, and you're stuffing chocolate in your face. So again, that is in silence, hiding it, secrecy, and fear of judgment, someone watching us. So that is that sort of from numbing to pleasure. So that's how you know the difference. So you know within yourself, if you have feeling something coming up and you're just like stuffing something in, if you're stuffing it in, just take a step back. Just notice. You're not going to be able to be perfect at this every single time, but notice what you're doing. Notice if it's shoving the food in, or if it's taking a moment and really enjoying that chocolate, ice cream, whatever it is for you. So I want you to just be aware of that. And that's something that us humans do, and a lot of us do, and the emotional eating is around that. We did a live in my private group with an amazing lady who shared her story, and it was so beautiful. And she was just talking about that. She's really becoming aware of it and how much has changed from her by that awareness. How much she realized she really was suppressing the emotions, and she shared it openly in the group. It was beautiful and vulnerable. Yeah, vulnerable for her to do that. And now, you know, she's kind of accountable in that way. Like she can talk to people about it, and they can say, how are you going with that? So you're not alone, and you're still continuing to share that story and get support. So accountability and support, yeah? So it's not judgment, it's that support. So that's the difference between suppressing and numbing and pleasure there. So you can sort of pick up what you're doing. But the problem with numbing is that you actually can't suppress just one emotion or even a couple. So you can't just suppress, say, the negative emotion. So if you're trying to suppress anger or sadness or being pissed off or whatever it is, you'll actually suppress all emotions. So it's hard to experience the joy and happiness as well as the perceived negative emotions. That's something to take note of, because when we are suppressing, we can't feel anything then. It's like we're numbing it all. Doing a lot of hand movements again that you can't even see because I'm down low. Something I just wanted to point out, that none of us are a victim to this. As in, we have chosen it all. And when we actually take our power back by deciding to take responsibility for this. Thanks for watching, guys. Thanks for everyone joining. So when we stop blaming everyone else, when we do that, it actually disempowers us. So with this emotional eating, we really, because I can see some people will be like, I do it because of such and such, or I do it because of this situation, or I do it because of this. Again, that's projecting everything outside of us, a bit like when we're trying to strive for happiness outside of us. We have no control of our happiness outside of us, because that means that anyone can decide if we are happy or not, or have that power over us. And the same with us taking control back here and taking responsibility for that. We can get the control back in our life, and we can actually do something about it. Because if we're blaming everybody else and it's all coming outside here, hands up, can't do anything about it. Yeah? So something to be aware of. Take that responsibility back. I did also want to touch on one thing that Brene says. I'm still talking about a lot of her stuff here. So powerful. If you can get to read her, well, listen to it, because it's not actually a book. Power of Vulnerability is a talk that she put on, like a weekend talk, and they've just taken all of that. So empowering for you. One thing she does talk about is that joy is actually one of the hardest emotions for us to feel. And I did a post on it a while ago, and I talked about being a joy stealer. Not me, as in we do this. As in, when we feel joy, say, I'm going to use the same example I use because it's a great one. We say, look at our children asleep in the bed, or, in any situation, and they look so beautiful and we love them so much. But then in that split second, we imagine something happening. So because we're scared, it's like we're trying to prepare ourselves all the time for the worst case scenario. So that's what she was sort of saying, is like, it's hard to feel the joy because we're scared anytime something good happens that something bad's going to happen. So we pull that emotion and we jump in with this worst case scenario, stealing that joy away from us. Yeah, so we're always, and she said, you can never, ever prepare for a worst case scenario, ever. So it doesn't matter how much you prepare for anyone passing, or for something happening to someone, or something happening to your life. When it actually happens, or if it does happen, hopefully not, obviously, but if it does happen, those people, she has done so many interviews with research with people all over the world. She said nothing could prepare them for whatever happened, whatever that was. So let's feel the joy in that moment. And she said the best way to turn that around is to turn it around to gratitude, which we're going to do in one of our tips, to when you're in that joyful situation and you notice those thoughts come in, sit with gratitude, turn it around, say all the things that you're grateful for about that moment, about whatever's going on. So much more powerful than going into worst case scenario. And she actually talked about how we tend to do that too from, I think I talked about it the other night. I think I've got it for our tips here. But what we're watching, because what we're feeding our mind with on the TV is like in our subconscious. So she even talked about how she'd got home from a date one night and it was an amazing night with her husband. They'd had a great time, and then they walked through the door and she imagined, they were about to walk through the door, and she was like, wouldn't it just be horrible if we were just like shot down right now? Right, and the kids would come out and then they would see us and it would be awful, and blah, she went on this rant, and her husband looked at her and thought, what happened? Where did this come from? And she was that goes into that joy. She felt so much joy in that moment. But she said that whole morning she spent watching crime scene investigation. So she said, we're not wired to watch that stuff. I love what she said is, we will see, just imagine what you do if you're driving down the road and you see a dead animal on the road. What do you do? What do you physically do? Have a think about it. Like I know, I'm like, ugh, ugh. I feel a bit sick. So we're doing that with the dead animal on the side of the road, yet we're bombarded with violent images and scary things and all sorts on the television all the time. We're not wired for that. Our subconscious can't handle it. It doesn't know, like we're going into Joe Dispenza's stuff now, it doesn't know the difference between what's real and what's not. It just sees it in your mind. That's why you will have dreams about it, will be on our mind, and we expect that, like that can add to expecting the worst case scenario. Thanks for everyone joining now too. So I kind of digressed a little bit there. One thing I love the saying is, when we know better, we do better. So by knowing this information, you're aware. Awareness is the first step to anything you do in your life. But from then, I love Joe. Yeah, you're loving it now, Rose. You love Joe now. I'm going to get into one of his things later. When we're aware, we can actually then take action and catch ourselves. And you're not going to be perfect. You cannot expect to be perfect. We're all going to have those, what do we call it? Regress back and, there's a word, I think, default back to our old patterns. You know, we're human beings. We are living a human experience and we're going to stuff up. Yeah. But let's start with awareness. So when you know better, you do better. Our formative years, if we go into a bit of Bruce Lipton stuff now, Rose, you've got to get onto him now. Bruce Lipton, yeah, that's his name, I think. So I've got more of his books up there too. Amazing human being. Our formative years are between 0 and 7. And we actually, unfortunately, form most of our beliefs in that period, and our beliefs from everyone around us. And I mean, you have to ask yourself the question of, because we're going into beliefs a little bit here, is, are those beliefs that we formed in those young years serving us well as grown-ups? Because you hear people's story of, oh, something happened to me, and it can be either in the home or a lot of times it can be at school. And we form a belief that something happened in school, say for example, a teacher said something to you, and we form this belief that we're so stupid and that we, along those lines anyway. So you're not, no one is that. Now we take that belief into us as a grown up, and then we live that belief and we look for everything that reinforces that belief. It's not super effective because we've probably done our full schooling there. We're probably I'm trying to get the word out now, very different to what we were when we were very young. So beliefs that we form then aren't necessarily effective as adults. Something else to be aware of, and to ask yourself with your beliefs. Most of us lock our mind on a belief and can't see anything else. So a lot of us do this. So ask yourself, what is really true? Are these beliefs actually yours as well? Because we tend to form a lot of our beliefs from what our parents tell us, from what, if you're religious, it might be religious beliefs, it might be from school, from friends. Ask yourself, is this really true for me? Does this sit well with me? Is this the belief that I actually want to hold, or was this one I was just told to believe? So sit with those ones. And now we're going to move into tips, because I knew this was going to be a longer one. I think we've already gone 20 minutes, but it's all good, because I knew this was going to be a juicy one. This is a really, really good topic, and one hubby and I love diving into a lot. Mindset is just all of it. So this is like the N1 because it's like capping on the whole 7 days. So if you're just jumping on now, go back and restart. And not now, later. Go back and watch it later. So my tips for this and my take homes for emotional eating and beliefs and all the suppressing is start with sharing your story of vulnerability with someone you feel comfortable with. You need to do it in a space that you might share something you feel shameful about that's getting you going off and eating, suppressing the emotions with food, but you need to do it with someone you trust. So comfortable and trust, because that will allow you to be able to drop into your vulnerability. So it's easier to do this with people that you can sit down and you feel that rather than just strangers. Yeah, like Brene talks about how when strangers just go bleh with something super vulnerable and you go, woo, too much information. So you have to get that space where you trust. Like just going and telling someone on the side of the street, you're going to get that response and you're going to feel like, see, I talked about it and they don't want to hear about it. So with someone you trust. And she says, and I love this, to choose discomfort over resentment. Because she said it feeds in this shame cycle where we resent, but then we feel shame for resenting. So these type, you know, I can do this as well, but I'll just use it as the type of people, other people are yes people. So they will say yes to everything, but actually resent it. But they'll, you know, so oh yes, I'll do it, but the resentment's there. They'll, you know, say, she used the example of she was asked to do a, biscuits or something, I don't know, sweets for a school thing. And instead of saying, oh, look, I can't at this stage, sorry, my phone's going all blurry, it's having a fit. There we go. Instead of choosing that discomfort in the moment and just being really honest and saying, you know, right now it's not a good time, but ask another time, I'm just really busy, I've got this on and this. But then turns around and bakes them up all night, yelling at the family, feeling it, and then eating the cookies, feeling shame about it. Why didn't I just say no? And then handing them over with this, like, here's your bloody cookies, you know? So choose discomfort over resentment. Moving to the gratitude again. Gratitude, I think we've touched on it many times now. And that can also go back to affirmations, writing little notes around to remind yourself of the behaviors that you want to action now. So you may have that little note and it may be on the fridge or in the pantry. Like, what am I choosing in this moment? Could be a good one. You know, am I choosing to suppress my emotion, or am I choosing to feel it? You know, are you going to feel the emotion? Like, whatever sits. I love it too, Beck. That'd be a good one for you, babe. It's so good. I love that one. So what are you choosing in that moment? So that would be a really good one to have. But you can work out whatever suits you and put those words around to remind yourself. Yeah, we need reminders. We will go back to those default patterns. So remind yourself. Use that. So it could be little reminders. You could do affirmations again. Gratitude, whether you write down 3 things you're grateful for on a daily basis, or in those moments of where we're feeling the joy stealing, sit with gratitude instead. That feels so much better. Thanks everyone joining now. Breath. Breathe. When we're feeling that emotion, take some really deep breaths like we went through in, can't remember which one it was now. One of the lives, we went through doing the 5 deep breaths in, holding the breath for 5, releasing for 5, and holding for 5 times, or 7. So breathe, feel the emotion, and let it pass. And now I'm going to talk about Joe Dispenza. Rose, if you're still watching, I just love this man. He is amazing. His studies a neuroscientist and his work is phenomenal. If you get to listen, if you're not a reader, then just jump on. He's got a gazillion people who interviewed him. I've listened to like nearly everything. And then his books are the best. Hubby and I are looking at doing his course one day because he just changes the way you think. And one of his sayings is, think greater than you feel. So when we're feeling those emotions, that's going to stop us thinking. So instead of just going into it, stopping and thinking about what we're doing, because our bodies will crave the same emotions they've always felt. Hence why it's so hard to change. Yeah. So it's really hard because our bodies will crave that feeling. Our mind will be like, yeah, I want to change. I want to eat better. I want to do this or whatever it is for you. But our bodies will crave that emotion. That's why you'll be like, hey, I was really good today. And then the little voice will be like, go on, reward yourself. Go and have that little whatever or whatever it is. So because your body's craving that. So you need to think greater than you feel in those moments. Love that saying. He says too, when you think greater than you feel, I'm going to read this one for you. When we let our emotions run our lives, they can that actually goes all the way back to what we formed as children. And like I said, the body craves that emotion because it used to feel that way. Also, I can't remember if it was him or I actually don't know where I got this one from, but this is brilliant. Say change in that moment too. So that's using that thought process. Change. I was like, was either him or Jim Quick? Love all these people. In that moment, say out loud, change. Yeah, and it's going to stop that thought pattern. It's like sort of stopping those neuro pathways in their tracks. Yeah, because we're always trying to create new neuro pathways. That's what we do when we learn. Okay, anytime we learn something new, we're doing new ones. Yes, instead of having the same old, like the same way you brush your teeth and the same way you drive to work and the same way you make a coffee and the same way you do everything, if those patterns stay the same, it's kind of like we stay the same. So we need to create those new neuro pathways. So saying change out loud stops that old pattern or behavior from happening. And then remind yourself, and this is what I would use in this example, that your health and happiness is more important. Because it's so much more important, and it's usually so much more important that that short little 2-second pleasure of something that you don't even want to eat, that's going to make you feel shame and guilt. Treat your happiness and health is more important. And to get mentally stronger like this, you actually have to do things that you don't want to generally, and that would be stopping those patterns, not eating the foods that are toxic for you and not feel good. You may have to get up and do some exercise when you don't want to. Doing those things that challenge us in life make us stronger. That's where the growth happens, when we step outside our comfort zone. I wanted to touch on the power of keeping to your word. So these kind of like all flow into each other here, because I talk about this and I post about it, because in my group I post every day, and this one comes up a lot, is staying true to your word. It does something to your brain chemistry when you say you're going to do something and you follow through with it. It is so powerful. You actually get to I used to use this example last year, for the ladies. I didn't drink alcohol for 3 months. I said I wasn't going to for 3 months, and I didn't for 3 months from day to day. Not once. I'd get, oh, not even for your birthday, or not for that wedding, or not because you're going away, or not. And I said, no, I said I wasn't going to drink for 3 months. It wasn't, I'm going to drink for not 2 weeks and then have one and then I'm out and then not 3 more weeks and then we're out there. And then, no, it was 3 months. When you get to the end of something like that, it totally empowers you because you think, I did that. I kept to my word. What else can I do? So powerful, keeping to your word. So you could even use this tip now to say something you're going to do, action it, and keep your word to it. Remember that everything, this life really, this life is a journey. Yeah. Let's not just, and I can use it in the terms of, say, for example, my 8-week program. So we often just think about the destination and where we want to be, and we forget about all the little wins and the little changes we've done along the way. And we're so focused on the end result and it being a certain way. And when it's not, we forget about everything else that happened from here to here. Yeah. And I see it all the time. I see people get stronger, fitter, change their body shape, just get bloody healthier, sleep better, eat better. So many changes, but we didn't lose whatever amount on the scale. So we didn't get anything. We didn't achieve anything. We really need to stop ourselves and see those wins, celebrate them. Let's not so focused on the end, focus on the journey there, yeah? And the journey is just endless, really, because like I've said to people, so you don't get your results you desired in that period of time, what are you going to do? Go back and sit on the couch? Not do anything? We are always, like, what's not the right word I was going to say. We are always working on our health, because without our health, we have nothing. Nothing. We won't be there for our kids. We won't be there for work. There's so much. Our health is everything. So we are always working on being a healthy being. Just wanted to say that. This is the last point I want to run before I do my end quote, is devour knowledge. Devour it. Devour it and then action plan it. So some of my favorite people I've gone through tonight: Joe Dispenza's amazing, Brene Brown, Bruce Lipton, Melissa Ambrosini, what's her name? Kelly. Oh my God, my brain's gone fried. I've got so many of them behind me. But just get as much content as you can. Understand who you are as a human being and grow from there, and push those comfort zones and just show yourself what you're capable of. Oh, I love this one. It's a power one tonight. Loved it. Now, how could I forget? I've just got his name on the next one. Preston Smiles and Alexi Panos, two of my favorite people. I've done their course and read their books. And this is a quote from Preston I took from one of his little lives he did, one of his little YouTube clips. Your judgments, and I want you to think about yourself here, your judgments keep you from joy, and your expectations keep you from happiness. Now, I wanted you to think about that as yourself, not other people, even though we could do that. You could feel that with other people, that expectation, but how you put that on yourself. Because we have so much judgments on ourselves that it stops us from feeling joy on the everyday basis, and then an expectation, so an expectation to look a certain way, be a certain way, whatever it is, we're just breaking this down a little bit, keeps you from your happiness. So powerful, and all of this, on the flip side, if we're not doing this, just creates more suffering and more shame. So powerful, powerful words. I'm going to say it one more time for you guys. Your judgments keep you from joy, and your expectations keep you from happiness. And all of this just creates more suffering and shame. Just let that land. It's pretty cool. And this is why we can see that the cycle never ends, because shame, as I've said before, it can get handed down from generation to generation as well. So it can be the way that you've seen your mother dislike her body and shame on her body, and then you followed that, and it goes on cycle after cycle and generation from generation until it dissolves by someone stepping out and being in that vulnerable space, sharing your story and stopping the suppression of emotions. So I am going to leave you with that tonight, beautiful people. I'm actually going to jump on tomorrow night and share a little bit about my program. We're going to get into that tomorrow night. So I didn't want to add to that tonight because it's already a long one tonight. And because it starts in a couple of days. So jump on tomorrow night. I'm going to talk about that. And I'd love to see anyone who wants to come and get this type of support, because I do post like this every single day, because mindset is everything. Without it, we won't be choosing healthier foods, be looking after our health, any of it. So jump on tomorrow night and I will talk a little bit more about it. I hope you have an amazing night. And like I've said before, like, comment, share, so I know if you really enjoyed this one. I feel like this is a really juicy one. So passionate about this topic and relates to everybody. So comment away, send me any questions, comment, tell me if you enjoyed it, share it if you did as well. Let someone else hear this message, because lots of us need it. So much love tonight. Have a wonderful Easter, and I'll speak to you all tomorrow night. Bye for now.